All right, so get this. We're diving into Ripple today. You guys sent in some really interesting sources, and we're going to break down what makes this platform and its cryptocurrency XRP so fascinating.
Yeah, Ripple has quite the story. From attracting these huge banks
Mm.
to facing all the scrutiny from regulators, it's a lot.
Definitely a lot to unpack. So let's just start with the tech itself. RippleNet, a lot of people are saying it's the future of global payments. What's the big deal?
Okay, so imagine, right, sending money across the world, but as fast as you send a text. That's basically what RippleNet's all about. We're talking transactions settling in just 3 to 5 seconds.
Wow, that's a serious upgrade. I mean, think about it. We're used to waiting days for traditional transfers. Like, I'm thinking about a small business owner who needs to, import materials from overseas. That kind of speed could totally change the game for their cash flow, right?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And it's not just the speed. The cost savings are huge, too. We're talking fractions of a cent per transaction, which is nothing compared to the fees you get with traditional methods.
Okay, so it's kind of like ditching that super expensive international courier service and switching to email, but, for money. Way faster, way cheaper. But where does XRP fit into all of this? The cryptocurrency, I mean.
Okay, so think of XRP as the thing that keeps those transactions running smoothly, like a bridge currency. It makes it super easy to exchange different currencies.
I'll see, yeah.
So let's say you want to send euros to someone who needs Japanese yen. XRP can be the common ground, so you don't have to go through a ton of steps and conversions.
Makes sense. Streamlining the whole process. That explains the speed and the lower costs. But I'm seeing here in the sources that XRP also increases something called liquidity. Can you break that down a bit?
Yeah, so liquidity, basically, it means how easy it is to buy or sell XRP without messing up the price. So because they're using XRP as this bridge currency, it means there's always enough of it available to handle all these transactions, even if the currencies are totally different.
Okay, so it's like having a global currency exchange that's always open for business. And I'm reading here that XRP is way more eco-friendly compared to some of the other cryptocurrencies out there.
Exactly. So unlike Bitcoin, which needs all this energy for mining, XRP uses something called a consensus mechanism to make sure the transactions are legit. And it's way more efficient. I think it's over 100 times more efficient than the way Bitcoin does it.
So we've got a speedy, cheap, and green system. Okay, I get it. But why are all these big banks, the traditional institutions, suddenly interested in something like Ripple? It seems kind of, I don't know, unexpected.
Yeah, it might seem a little strange, but the benefits we've been talking about, those are exactly why they're interested. The speed, the cost savings, it's hard to ignore that. Plus, there's that on-demand liquidity we talked about. Banks don't have to lock up all their money in different foreign currencies anymore.
Interesting. So it's making their whole operation smoother and less expensive. Are there any real-world examples of banks actually using Ripple, though?
For sure. Santander, they're a big international bank, right? And they've actually integrated Ripple's technology into their OnePay FX service. So their customers can send international payments, super fast and for way less money than usual. It's making these cross-border transactions way easier for regular people.
So hypothetically, if I wanted to help out a friend who's traveling in Europe or something, I could use a service like that and not get killed by those crazy wire transfer fees.
Exactly. Or think about it if you're a business owner and you're importing stuff from another country, faster, cheaper payments means you have more cash on hand, and you can even maybe lower your prices for your customers. Ripple could seriously change things for both regular people and businesses.
Yeah, this is where things get interesting, right? Because it's clear that Ripple's not just about changing the financial world. It could impact everyone. But, there's always a flip side, isn't there?
Yeah, definitely. Ripple has its fair share of challenges and controversies we need to talk about.
Yeah, let's get into that. All these sources are mentioning a lawsuit from the SEC. What's the deal with that?
Okay, so the SEC, that's the Securities and Exchange Commission, they filed this lawsuit against Ripple back in 2020. They're saying that XRP was sold as an unregistered security. Basically, they're arguing that it should have the same rules as stocks and bonds.
So it's all about how they're classifying XRP and how they're going to regulate it. Why is that such a big deal?
Well, if they decide that XRP is a security, it could mean way stricter regulations, which could really mess with its trading and how people use it. This whole uncertainty thing is a big worry for investors, and any institution that's thinking about using Ripple, it's a big question mark hanging over the whole platform.
Right, a big legal battle, definitely making some waves. Anything else beyond this lawsuit we should be thinking about?
Yeah, so one of the big criticisms of Ripple is how centralized it is. Unlike Bitcoin, which was designed to be, decentralized, Ripple Labs has a lot of control over the XRP supply.
So some critics are saying that because they rely on these like pre-mined XRP tokens, it goes against the whole idea of decentralization that the crypto world is all about. What do you say to that?
Yeah, it's a good point. It brings up the whole debate about like how much control is too much and how that affects innovation. Ripple says that their way of doing things makes things more stable and efficient, especially when it's still early days. But the critics, they worry about, people manipulating the system and whether all this centralized control goes against like the basic idea of cryptocurrency.
So it's like a balancing act. Seems like there are good arguments on both sides. What about other risks, though, with Ripple and XRP?
Well, just like all cryptocurrencies, XRP can be really volatile. The price can go up and down like crazy, which could be a problem if you're trying to use it as, a payment method. Imagine trying to send money when the value of XRP is all over the place. It's just not reliable.
Yeah, stability is super important if XRP wants to be taken seriously in the like global financial system. Anything else standing in their way?
Oh yeah, competition's a big one. Ripple's not the only one trying to make payments faster, more efficient. There's other blockchain networks like Stellar and the traditional players like Swift. They're stepping up their game too. And then, of course, you've got central bank digital currencies, those CBDCs. They can change everything.
Wow, so it's like Ripple's got competition from both sides. It's a battle for the future of finance,
It
right?
really is. And it'll be interesting to see how it all plays out. Who's going to come out on top?
All right, so we've got Ripple Labs, hundreds of financial institutions involved, this whole XRP community that's really passionate, and then, all the governments and regulators kind of watching from the sidelines. It's like a high-stakes poker game.
Yeah, it's a wild ride, that's for sure. And, any move anyone makes, especially the regulators, could completely change where Ripple ends up.
So what's next? What does the future hold for Ripple and XRP?
That's the big question, isn't it? We've covered a ton of ground just in this first part of our deep dive, so maybe let's take a second to like recap what we've learned and then, see if we can map out some possibilities for Ripple's future. So we've talked about how Ripple's aiming to like totally shake up global payments with, how fast and efficient it is.
And those are like huge pluses, right? I mean, taking something that used to take days down to just a few seconds, that's like a game changer.
Yeah, especially in today's world where everything's so fast.
And the cost savings, that's a big deal too. I mean, businesses and anyone sending money across borders, they're going to love that.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. It's like finally ditching dial-up and getting fiber optic internet. You know what I mean? But, okay, any big change comes with, some bumps in the road.
Yeah, exactly. And for Ripple, it seems like those regulatory issues, the SEC lawsuit, the whole centralization thing, those are some pretty big bumps.
Yeah, for sure.
That SEC lawsuit, it's kind of scary, right? Some people are saying it could like really hold Ripple back. What do you think?
Well, it's a big challenge, that's for sure. And, how this lawsuit turns out, it could affect the whole crypto world, not just Ripple. It's a big moment for like how we see cryptocurrencies and how we decide to regulate them.
Okay, so let's just say hypothetically Ripple figures all that out. That we win the lawsuit, they address those concerns about centralization. What happens then? What could that mean for like the whole financial system?
Now we're getting into the really interesting stuff, the what ifs. If Ripple really takes off, it could, maybe even challenge the way things are done now, the traditional financial systems.
Whoa, you're talking about like disrupting the big guys, the ones who have been in charge of money for like ever.
Exactly. Think about SWIFT, the system that's used for most international transfers right now. It's been around forever, it works. But there's a lot of pressure to, modernize it because there are all these new, faster, cheaper options popping up.
Imagine, though, if Ripple just became the go-to for global payments. Transactions would be like instant, super cheap, and way more transparent.
Right. That's got to be appealing to businesses and like regular people, right?
Oh, yeah, totally. I mean, think about remittances, the money people send back home to their families. They wouldn't lose so much to fees, which can make a big difference for a lot of families.
And for businesses doing, international trade, it would be like so much smoother, better cash flow, maybe even lower prices for consumers.
Makes sense.
And that transparency thing, it could help fight fraud and corruption too. Everything's recorded on the blockchain, so it's like way harder to hide any shady stuff.
So it's not just about like speed and cost, it's about making the whole system fairer and more open.
Yeah, exactly. But, even with all that, are people really ready for like a total change in how they handle their money?
That's a good point. Adopting a whole new financial system, it can be kind of intimidating, right? People, they like resist change, especially when it comes to their money.
For sure. They're used to their bank accounts, their credit cards, the way they've always done things.
Yeah.
Even if it's not perfect, it's familiar.
Right, it's what they know. So even if there are all these advantages, switching to something new, it's like, oh, leap of faith.
It's like, getting a new operating system for your computer. Even if you know it's better, it's still scary to switch.
Totally. So education is super important. People need to understand like how Ripple works, what the benefits are, how to use it safely.
Yeah. Yeah, it's about trust, demystifying the technology.
Yeah.
People have to feel comfortable before they'll really embrace something new like this.
We've talked about how this could affect, individuals and businesses, but what about governments? How would they react to a world where Ripple's like a major player?
Oh, that's a big one. And I don't think there's an easy answer. Governments are still trying to figure out, how to regulate cryptocurrency in general. It's all so new.
It's like they've discovered a new continent and they're still like drawing the maps.
Yeah, good analogy. Some governments, they might be excited about Ripple. They might see it as a way to make their own financial systems better, more efficient, more transparent. But others might be more hesitant, worried about losing control of their, monetary policy.
It's a big geopolitical thing, right? It could affect like national sovereignty, economic power. Some governments might even see it as a threat to the US dollar, how it's used in global trade.
Yeah, that's definitely a possibility. And then there's the chance that some governments might just try to ban or restrict Ripple altogether.
Wow, so there's a whole range of reactions they could have, and whatever they decide to do, it's going to have a big impact on Ripple's future.
For sure. That's why it's so important to keep an eye on what's happening with regulations, how they're changing. It's a moving target, and it's important to understand, the politics, the economics behind it all.
Okay, so we've talked about the good stuff, the challenges, the uncertainty, even the geopolitical stuff. But what about the people behind Ripple? Who are they? What's driving them?
Yeah, that's a really important question, and one that doesn't get asked enough, I think. We get caught up in the tech and what it could do, but in the end, it's people who are behind all this, right?
Like any big invention, there's a story there. A group of people who had an idea and, set out to make it real.
And for Ripple, it's this mix of idealists, entrepreneurs, tech people. It started with Chris Larson and Jed McCaleb back in 2012. They founded Ripple Labs.
So what were they trying to do? What was their big vision for Ripple?
Well, from the beginning, they wanted to create a global financial system that was more efficient, more accessible. They saw all the problems with the current system, how slow it is, the high costs, how unclear it can be.
They saw an opportunity to use, blockchain technology to make something better, something that could benefit everybody.
Exactly. And it wasn't just about, making money. They talked about financial inclusion, empowering individuals and businesses, leveling the playing field.
And that message, it really connected with people, right? And
Yeah.
it helped the XRP community grow.
Oh, yeah, definitely. The XRP community, it's like this global network of developers, investors, people who really believe in XRP. They're spreading the word, building new applications, pushing for wider adoption.
It's like a grassroots movement powered by people who see the potential of this technology.
It really is. And that's what makes Ripple so, compelling. It's not just a company telling everyone what to do. It's like a group effort. All these different people working together because they have this shared vision.
It's a great example of how technology can bring people together and, lead to new ideas. But we can't forget any powerful technology. There are ethical things to think about.
Right. Yeah. As Ripple gets bigger and, we see its potential impact, we need to be really careful and think about the ethical side of things. What happens if it really takes off?
We have to ask those tough questions about data privacy, security, unintended consequences. How can we make sure this technology is used for good, in a responsible way?
Those are the questions. Yeah.
Yeah.
And the answers, they'll probably change as the technology develops, right? It's an ongoing conversation and it needs input from everyone involved.
So we have to think about not just the technical stuff about Ripple, but the social, ethical, maybe even philosophical stuff, how it could change the world.
Exactly. It's about looking past the hype and really thinking about the future we want.
It's about remembering that technology is a tool, and like any tool, it can be used in good ways and bad ways. It's up to us to decide how we want to shape the future of finance and, what role something like Ripple will play.
Yeah, that's a really powerful thought. We need to remember that as we, move forward with all this new and exciting technology.
So, okay, we've covered a ton in the second part of our deep dive. We've talked about what the future could look like, the people behind Ripple, and even some of the ethical questions we need to ask. Now I think it's time to bring it all together and, highlight the key takeaways for our listeners.
All right, well, that about wraps up our deep dive into Ripple. We've gone over a lot, so let's just hit the main points one more time, just for you guys.
So we started with the basics, right? RippleNet, that global payments network, and XRP, the cryptocurrency, acting like a bridge between all those different currencies.
And yeah, we talked about how that bridge is what makes everything so much faster and
Right.
cheaper, right? Plus, how much better XRP is for the environment compared to some of those other big cryptocurrencies out there.
Right. And then we got into why traditional financial institutions, like Santander, why they're starting to use Ripple. The speed and the low cost, that's a no-brainer. But we also talked about, how it gives them that on-demand liquidity and how blockchain makes everything so much more transparent. We didn't ignore the tough stuff either. That SEC lawsuit, that's a big one, and how it turns out could really change things for Ripple.
Yeah, and all those concerns about centralization, that's another thing to think about. It's a real discussion in the crypto world, finding that balance between control and a truly decentralized system.
We also talked about the bigger picture, all the competition Ripple's facing, not just from other crypto projects like Stellar, but even from those established players like Swift who are, trying to innovate too.
And then there's the whole central bank digital currency thing, CBDCs. It's definitely an interesting time to be watching the world of finance, that's for sure.
Totally. We even spent some time talking about the people behind all of this, the ones who had the vision for Ripple and the community that's grown up around it.
Yeah, and we talked about, the ethics of it all. Any technology this powerful, you have to think about how it's being used and what it could mean for, everyone, businesses, whole societies, everything.
So, what does this all mean for you? What should you be taking away from all this?
Well, I think the biggest takeaway is that the future of finance, it's not set in stone. Ripple's just one player in a space that's changing all the time, and the next few years are going to be really important for them.
It's like a story that's still being written and we're all watching it unfold, which is pretty cool. So, keep learning, keep asking questions, and see where it all goes.
You've got a much better understanding of Ripple now, the potential it has, the challenge it's facing, all of that. So, use that to form your own opinions and make your way through this crazy world of cryptocurrency and, all this financial innovation.
And the best way to stay ahead of the game is to, stay informed. Who knows? Maybe this deep dive sparked an idea for you. Maybe you'll be the one to come up with the next big thing in finance.
Anything's possible.
Yeah.
So we're going to wrap up this episode here. Keep digging into the things you're curious about. Connect with other people who are, passionate about this stuff. And don't be afraid to, shake things up a bit.
That's what the deep dive is all about. We'll be back soon with another fascinating topic, but until then, keep those brains working and keep diving deep.